各位朋友们，大家好，安安大家好，我是苏探，欢迎来到今天的节目。今天我们要讨论一个比较特别的话题，也就是跟每个台湾人所相关的主题，就是在台湾的那些来自世界各地的移工，现在疫情中面临什么样的问题。那我今天也邀请一个特别来宾，就是 Nihao it going 台味爱尔兰人。我们今天的节目要以英文为主，那下面会有中文字幕，欢迎各位收看。Hey there，
那结果大家，意思就是大家好。
大家好。
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Probably going to talk about this issues regarding migrant workers, particularly in Taiwan, and what's been happening in苗栗regarding the fact that for many Taiwanese, they're still in level 3, but for a lot of these migrant workers, they've gone into, you could say, almost a de facto level 4 situation.
Could you tell us more about the whole situation in苗栗right now?
Well, the mayor, as far as we saw there, posted out some graphics regarding, like, stay inside. If you go outside, you're going to get fined. Police are looking at you. You can see it online. There's reports that talk specifically about the police have basically arrested migrant workers. And they're living in dorms that aren't necessarily really COVID. I mean, you could say they're COVID friendly. They're not exactly giving people a lot of space. They're not giving people the protection they need. So it's a case of lock them all in. They're not allowed to come out, but they're fine to be in there without the social distancing. It makes no sense. And the simple fact of the matter is the vast majority of people that have had cases in Taiwan are Taiwanese, and restricting migrant workers in this way is nothing short of discrimination, because the Taiwanese government has said to people in Taiwan, we don't need to go to a level 4 scenario where everyone has to stay inside. We could still track, we could still trace. This is how we're going to do things for the sake of the economy and for the very well-being of society. But yet the same standard is not given to migrant workers, the people that in many ways are responsible as the backbone of Taiwan's economy, as people that are paid less, work longer hours, work within industries that are vital towards Taiwan's economy, both internally and externally with exports, but yet they are not given the same respect in many ways. I mean, I would call it respect. Like, if you're saying to somebody that's a migrant worker, you need to stay indoors, you can never come out, you can't even go to a 7-Eleven. If you live out somewhere else in a private apartment, you need to come back and stay inside the dormitory with a dozen other fucking people. Oh, sorry for swearing. You can bleep me there. It's ridiculous, and it's downright discrimination. It's a case that there is a double standard for Taiwanese and foreign professionals compared to migrant workers, the very people that make up the backbone of this society. And the comments online there is a mixture of great solidarity with Taiwanese that have understood the issue. They want to make a difference. They want to say what they think is wrong, but there is just as many, unfortunately, people that are almost in some way trying to rationalize this as, well, we just have to get through it, it's weird times, or simply people saying, send them home if they get COVID, almost this,
that's
it's this idea of that inexpendable workforce. They're not people anymore. They are just here for our benefit. What is their benefit? They just work for us. They're here to work. If they don't like it, go home. That's the same sort of thing that many immigrants in many other countries in the world have to face. That is something that, it's like my friend, he said to me, in Taiwan, if legal laborers are being treated worse than legal labor in the US, something's fucking wrong. Sorry for swearing again, you can bleep me.
Yeah, of course. And actually what makes me a little bit frightened when I see the whole situation which is happening with migrant workers in Taiwan right now, the people are not being treated like as if they were the full members of the Taiwanese society, even though they're working longer hours, even though they spend most of their time in Taiwan. And regarding苗栗, I read the article online about the lady who couldn't go to a bank to wire part of her salary to her family. I think she was, I don't remember from which of the Southeast Asian countries. But if she went there together with an elderly person whom she is taking care of, she could have gone there. So they can go anywhere. They can go to buy some necessities. But the only thing they can do is go to work and go back. Go to work and go back. And that really is, while the whole Taiwan is still it's level 3, but it's still functioning. If you have to go to the store, if you have to go to the pharmacy, you can do it, but not with the migrant workers. So it's an equal treatment, and that's not Taiwan that I know, and probably it's not Taiwan that most of the foreign white collar workers know, like a very
white
open.
People.
Yeah.
Let's just say it as it is, lads.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. Me and you, we work here 5 years. We get our APRC. We work here for 5 years. We don't have to put up with as much discrimination. The simple fact of the matter is, you could be a caregiver, or you could be working in a factory. You could be working in shipping. After 5 years, you're not going to meet the requirements that's been put in place to give you permanent
the salary
residency.
Requirements. Yeah, they're
Exactly.
very high for the blue collar workers.
They're very high, which is very unfortunate, because these are people that could stay here. These are people that contribute heavily to Taiwanese society. And another thing about this is the next layer is, after 5 years, you don't get your APRC. But after 12 years of working here, you can't come back and work. So not only can you not get permanent residency, but you can't even stay here and work after 12 years. It's in a
just use it and throw it away. Use it and throw it away.
Use it and throw it away.
Disposable workers. Yeah.
It's an expendable workforce. And then it also goes back to the fact that even right now, I mean, I've had people write into me and they've said to me, essentially, I'm in a situation where I'm supposed to be transferring to my next employer. I'm in a situation where the government said migrant workers can't transfer to a different employer at this stage. So they have the option of either, staying with their current company if they'll still hire them, or leaving in some ways. That's insane. Like, imagine if somebody is Taiwanese and told, sorry, but given the circumstances, you can't change your employer. Either stay with your current one or leave that job. I mean, that would be insane. That would be all over national headlines. That would be everywhere. Yeah. It's a simple case that there is two different standards in Taiwan right now. And Taiwanese are at a stage where they are still given that benefit of the doubt to do the right thing. But migrant workers aren't. Migrant workers are being told, essentially, you can't be trusted as grown-ass adults to do the right thing. When the simple reality is, the people that didn't do the right thing, that caused this, were not given a benefit of the doubt. And we saw what happened with that. I mean, I don't want to say it exactly for what it is, but, screw it, I will. We saw pilots come into this country that were supposed to do the correct thing, the right thing, they didn't. And then right now, we are all on level 3, and we're all being told, do the right thing. Stay at home as much as you can. When you go out shopping, get as much as you can. But yet that same benefit of the doubt is not given to the people that didn't cause this crisis. The same group of people that have been overworked, have not been given the correct conditions to prevent this virus from spreading. These clusters aren't the fault of these migrant workers. The spread of this virus isn't really anybody's fault. I mean, you could go back to the very source of what started this outbreak, and you still wouldn't really, in some very reasonable way, say exactly, this is this person's fault. You shouldn't. It's a virus. It doesn't discriminate, and neither should we. These people that are working in factories are working there. They work very hard, very long hours. They work for less wages than many people in Taiwan. They work jobs that many Taiwanese simply would not take. And it's a simple reality that if the government in Taiwan does not step in at this stage, especially with what's happening in苗栗, the international media is going to take this and run with it. It already has. It's in The Guardian. And the simple reality is this: Taiwan is going to lose a lot of face. And this has been going on for so long. This has been happening for so long. There is so many cases of abuse. There's so many cases of just malpractice that's been involved within this industry for these people that work within these factories as caregivers. Even caregivers are paid below minimum wage. They aren't covered by the Labor Standards Act. They are technically taking a pay cut, so the government doesn't have to pay that equivalent extra bit to get them over onto the minimum wage. Essentially, these caregivers are paying through a wage loss what the government should be paying. And in many ways, COVID has not necessarily created or it hasn't pushed this as an issue that's come out of nowhere. This has been going on for years. And it's a simple reality as COVID's only accelerated this issue. And if it isn't dealt with now, and if the bare minimum of treating the people that work in these factories are not given the benefit of the doubt right now, then it's only going to embarrass Taiwan abroad. And it's only going to put into question whether or not Taiwanese civil society can fight hard enough to give everybody the same human rights as people deserve on this island. Because Taiwan went from, as we all know, went from martial law into the democracy it is today. Except me and you, factory workers, we can't protest. If we protest, we can get legally deported. We don't have a voice. We depend on Taiwanese people to help us. The same way that when I went to college and said, the bank will let me open an account, they said, get a Taiwanese to help you to open your bank account. Many of us are still depending on Taiwanese to help us to do the right thing. And there are many people that do it. The Taiwan International Workers Association, TIWA, they do some fantastic work. And thankfully they're doing it. And there are many Taiwanese right now that are involved and are putting in a lot of effort and are raising awareness, but it needs to keep happening. And there needs to be some change, or this issue is going to be blown up internationally. And Taiwan, in many ways, is just going to be completely embarrassed by the way that it treats factory workers.
And the laws also have to be adjusted in a certain way, because
absolutely,
discriminatory treatment of the migrant workers, it has been going on for a while. If you take a look, like, you can buy a car or a scooter in Taiwan, no problem. But if you're a blue-collar worker, you have to get a permission from your employer to buy a scooter. But how come it's your employer's business if you own a means of transportation or if you don't? You cannot switch the employers as easily.
This goes back to a simple issue of, is that even legal? Is this just an employer telling people? Is this a legal framework that's being put upon people? Because you will find that a lot of what employers are saying and even what municipals are saying is not true. The international
that's an official regulation. That's a regulation.
Is it?
Yes, it is. I can give you my personal example. I was selling a car in central Taiwan to a guy from South Africa. And this guy, he was working as a teacher, as an English teacher. And, we came to the DMC, like, all the paperwork, everything is ready, the car is all right. And they say, where is the permission from your employer to buy a car? He said, I don't need one. But then they showed me the piece of regulation where it said that such a letter is required. So I had to call to their supervisory DMC, which is in another city. And they said, for the white-collar workers, it's not needed. Only for the blue-collar ones. So you see, you cannot even buy a freaking scooter or a car if you're a blue-collar worker.
Well, it goes back to just the international newslands. They just put out their article there saying the fact that what's happening in Miaoli is technically illegal and discriminatory. Well, they say possibly discriminatory in the title, but it's a case that we already know what's happening is not perhaps on the legal side of the law, but it's continuing. And that's why I have a problem. And I think you can't just say, oh, this is only happening in Miaoli. No, this is a country. And if it can happen in one place, it can happen everywhere. And the government needs to step in, and it needs to put down, essentially, this is the law. This is Taiwan. I mean, there's some gray areas, you can park your scooter wherever you want, whatever. That's not going to change my life. That's not going to ruin your life. It might get in the way of, some regulations on the street or whatever, but this is something too fundamental for the government not to put its stand on it. This is too fundamental for the government not to almost make an example of saying, no, you don't do this.
Especially for the country that is always saying how tolerant, how multicultural, how does it value human rights. Yeah, Taiwan values human rights, but migrant workers' rights are also human rights.
Which human rights? Exactly.
And they also deserve equal treatment.
I mean, listen, me and you right here in Taiwan, we have essentially
I'm
white
in
privilege.
Poland.
Yeah. It's essentially the case that when you're in Taiwan as a white person, we have definitely the white privilege. We definitely have, in some senses, white worshipping aspects. And when you look at legal cases, both, from a legal standpoint and from a societal standpoint, we benefit a great amount. And I think the expat, well, they call themselves expats. I consider them immigrants. You live here, okay? You're not, plans to go back home. You're an immigrant. Call it what it is, White immigrants in Taiwan should be standing with migrant workers.
Well, we're
it's
the
a
same.
Simple case. We're all the
same. There's no difference.
We're not the same because I get paid double the minimum wage by law. Caregivers get paid below minimum wage by the law. Yeah. And then factory workers have to get paid above minimum wage, but the way that they're treated in terms of their housing and everything else, even the fishing industry is appalling. It's a simple case that on a level that we are technically foreigners in Taiwan, we're all on the same level field, but legally, we are all treated so differently, and that is wrong. And it's a simple case that the government needs to do something about this. And COVID has done nothing except for shine light on the current situation. That's all it's done. It's always been here. It's always been below the surface. It's always been what's underpinned Taiwanese economy to be sustained while the birth rate here essentially drops. They need these people to come over. They need people to be here to work in the industries that many Taiwanese will not work in for the wages. And without people to do those jobs, there is no Taiwan economy. There is no manufacturing that is essential. There are no these microchips and semiconductors that are so vitally important. I mean, the vast majority of us in Taiwan that work our jobs as, white people, what necessarily do, we do obviously contribute a lot to Taiwanese society. We do a lot of work to help businesses. But on a whole, we are a small minority compared to the vast majority of people in Taiwan that are immigrants and foreign nationals that are from Southeast Asia that don't get the same benefits and rights that we do. And that is just completely wrong. And it has to change.
所以各位朋友们，请务必要注意到，在台湾来自世界各地的外国朋友，包括东南亚的移工，因为他们每天为台湾都有付出，他们一样在台湾缴税，他们一样为台湾的社会努力工作。而且我们现在看到这种差别待遇，这种歧视的待遇，这种事情是不可容忍的，尤其是在台湾，在一个主张人权、自由跟那个平权的国家。我是斯坦，我们下次见。非常感谢今天的 Nihao Is It Going 这位台味爱尔兰人来我们今天的直播。
好，
我们下次见。